What's going on, everyone? My name's Dean. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're talking AFL 23 because it's been out for 3 weeks now. Although it feels like a lot longer, but it's been out for 3 weeks now. And obviously we've had a number of updates to the game since launch. It's still not perfect, still being worked on. But today I'm going to list off a bunch of things I still want to see in the game soon, I guess. So if we throw aside a lot of the obvious things, let's think about some of the other little things that maybe we can sneak into one of these daily updates if Big N see this video and you know, enough people give a shit. So let's kick it off with number 1, Pro Team and the game to come out on Xbox. Now, obviously, that's a very obvious choice. It's going to be coming for Xbox, but I actually want to talk about Pro Team here because I think there's half a chance that this does not launch until next year. Now, I obviously have no insider information, but I'm thinking like if the Xbox game doesn't come out for another like 5-6 weeks, because we still don't really know when it's coming out on Xbox, then like, you're only sort of giving yourself a 3-month window between that mode launching and the end of the final series. So it's really only like then 2-month window for all the other competing teams to actually be there. So from a player point of view, are you going to invest money or VC or whatever it is within that window, given it's such a limited time frame between then and the end of the year? I don't know. So does that mean we're going to get Pro Team this year? I mean, it still could happen. I genuinely don't know. But my personal thought would be like, hey, I'd probably just wait till next year, launch it as like its own separate thing, and it almost gives people a reason to buy the game at the start of next season where you can really get invested into it. And like, that is super disappointing if that is the case. And obviously I'm very preempting this here, but like, that is one of the key selling points of this game, and we still don't have like a proper launch plan for it. So Xbox and Pro Team sometime soon. Number 2, crossplay. Currently, because the game is being constantly updated and there's various different versions between PC and PlayStation, and obviously Xbox isn't even out yet, it is difficult to have a crossplay system between all the platforms, given the game still doesn't play ideally just yet. But it's one of the things I want to see coming. I think it was actually listed on the roadmap as one of the things to come is crossplay, and it'll happen eventually. But I think once the game gets ironed out, we'll get some crossplay. It'll be good to be able to play with friends all across the board. So no matter which platform you're on, you're probably going to find a game regardless. But that'll be good. Crossplay, when it comes, that'll be great. Number 3, a simulated scoreboard clock. Now, personally, I, for the life of me, can't work out how this is not in the game. And at the moment, the game currently displays the scoreboard in real time only. So if you play 3.5-minute quarters, you have a 3-minute, 30-second scoreboard that counts down from 3:30 to 0. There is no count up option either, so you can't even go past 3:30. Even in AFL 2003, that was the one game that did only to have real time, but you could do count up, so you could get like 6.5-minute quarters potentially on your 5 minutes if it did count up. So just something for a bit of dramatic effect. Obviously, you know, if you're playing FIFA, I can't really imagine playing for a game that's like 6-minute halves plus 15 seconds of time on. It just really does. It's not great, is it? Like, having that simulated scoreboard in there gives you a little bit more element of realism, and it gives you a bit more urgency because you don't know how long's left. Like, if there's 4 minutes left, you know, that's about a minute if you're playing 5-minute quarters. You know, so like you need to work through that in your head, and it's just something a bit different. Like, just give us the countdown, give us the count up, okay, 20 to zip, 0 past 20. Simples. Anyway, that's one of my major gripes because I'd love to see that come in. Number 4 is a flipped HUD. Now, I've actually sent this feedback through multiple times to the developers. I don't think it's ever going to happen because it probably takes a lot of work to do this. But I, for the life of me, can't work out why the scoreboard is at the bottom of the screen and not the top, and why the stamina bar is at the top of the screen and not the bottom. I'm sure it's been done to match the broadcast because the Channel 7 broadcast has it at the bottom of the screen. But for the life of me in a video game, I cannot work out why your most important element is literally in the part of the screen you're not looking at. Because for the most part, that top left corner of the screen is probably going to be like the crowd or something. It's not actually going to be used for something you would need to look at if you are needing to understand how much stamina your player has. Whereas, especially now that it kind of makes a bit more sense because it gets drained a bit more, it should be at the bottom of the screen because that's where your eye line is. That's where your play is happening, is at the bottom of the screen. That's where your player is located. If they're looking down the field at end-to-end camera, your player is at the bottom of the screen. If you're on the wide-angle camera and you're playing on the near side wing or even on the fat side wing, your player is sort of in the middle to lower portion of the screen. So it's going to be there in your eye line. There's no reason to look up there to actually see the stamina bar, and it's very frustrating for me. But that's a personal thing. But every other video game, it's in the design. It's in the lower part of the screen. That's just my thought. Anyway, if you hate that too, let me know in the comments. But that's literally one of my biggest issues with the game is the fact that the thing you need to see is so out of screen that you just don't see it. Anyway, that's it. Number 5, scenario mode. In Evo 2, there wasn't a dedicated scenario mode. Actually, there was. There was a dedicated scenario mode. What am I talking about? It was called Game Day, where you could literally play through every single game for the year at each quarter interval if you wanted to pick it up, or the teams were already there, or the lineups were already there. Like, it was a really good mode, in essence, to be able to play through the season as it happened. I think the next iteration of that would have been what Madden does, where you can sort of click into a part of the season and go, hey, I want to start the season now. So if I'm Richmond, for example, and I wanted to start a career mode starting now, I could jump in at them with 3 wins, 6 losses, and a draw and start the remainder of the season to try and play out and see how they could go. But at the moment, we currently don't have that in AFL 23. We don't even have an option to be able to customize the starting scoreline for your game. Hopefully that comes at some point in the future, but still TBC. But scenario mode, something I'd like to see added. Number 6, the goal kicking practice mode. Now, this is something that does confuse me that this is not in the final version of the game, because for those who downloaded the game, and if you only downloaded like the first few gigs, you actually were playing this goal kicking set shot mini game by itself, because the rest of the game wasn't unlocked. But then when you download the full game, there's no way to actually access that mini game specifically by itself. So it's a really tricky thing. I don't know why there can't just be a menu to be like, hey, goal kicking practice. Surely it's there. I think it might be one of the things that's coming in that list. Especially the goal kicking's had some tweaks to it from launch to now. I still think it's a bit buggy if you have to try to press a button towards the end, but we'll get through that, I guess. Hopefully that gets fixed. But yeah, be good to be able to practice that by itself, especially for snaps, because it's a slightly different skill level there. Number 7, gameplay sliders. Obviously, everyone has their own interpretation on how they want to play the game. It'd be good to have some sliders to be able to adjust things like that, whether it's tackle distance, kick distance, handball distance, accuracy, whatever it is that you want to do, game speed, if you want to make the plays really, really fast or really, really slow, just to be able to do that. Obviously, online is going to be like the base version of the game where you don't get that customization ability, or there could be the option to have private games customized to whatever your custom settings are, which we do see in things like Rocket League. Obviously, very simple game, but you can customize like the ball speed, the car speed, things like that in online play. So whether the sliders can carry over into private games is questionable. And obviously in cricket, you can set up your own custom difficulties. So you can have a number of custom difficulties and like pitch settings and things depending on where you're playing in the world. If you want to have a pitch that's in sort of like the Asian countries or the subcontinent compared to in Australia, which is more like a hard bouncy pitch, or like English conditions. Like there's ways to set up your difficulties for each particular stadium and pitch type. Where we don't really have that in AFL. If you want to play like a hard, fast game of footy, you can't have that settings versus the slower brand or whatever it is to try and customize your difficulty to best suit your gaming experience. So if that's something that's on the horizon, which I believe it is, hopefully we see that at some point soon. I'm not going to include tactics in this video because obviously they're coming at some point. I don't know when. And then from 8 till about 15, here is a bunch of things I want to include for career mode. And these are all like minor things, but currently the career mode is pretty bare in terms of what it is over like a play now match. Outside of it, there's not a huge amount of elements outside of, I guess, grand final cutscenes and like the fact that, you can trade and stuff at the end of the year. So in terms of your general play from start to end of the season, it does feel a little bit bland. So I got some ideas to maybe try and mix it up a bit. The first thing I want to see, which is actually both for career mode and play now, is either the like Brownlow votes or the player rankings per each individual game. Currently, we have a bunch of stats that you see at the end of each game, disposals, goals, whatever, but it'd be good to actually get a rating of which player was the best as judged by the game. In AFL Evo 2, the game ranking determined the Brownlow based on who had the most ranking points. And that was actually a stat you could view as well. And that was pretty much based off how Champion Data rated things a few years ago. So it was like a kick might be worth like 3 or 4 points, handball like 1 or 2, mark, etc., intercept mark. So that's sort of how that rating came about. And obviously we know there are Brownlow votes in the game because at the end of the season you see a big tally of list of who got the most Brownlow votes, but you can't actually see on a per game basis who got the 3-2-1. For myself personally, I did a big Brownlow stream on Evo 2, tallying up all the votes of everyone who got votes during that season. And I'm going to give a shout out to my mate Thomas, who I met at Gather Round at the Woolshed. If you know, you know. And he was saying he did a similar thing with him and his friends for their online season, because in Evo 2 you could see who got the 3-2-1 in each particular game. Their online games against each other, they all played off, and they tallied up all the Brownlow votes to give each other who won the Brownlow for their online season. So I think it's really important that Big Ant understand how the community want to use the game for their own content creation, whether it's like myself to do a big Brownlow medal stream, or whether it's the number of online leagues that are run across Facebook pages or friend groups, etc. online, that this is actually a really important thing to have in there so people know who are the 3-2-1s, so they can use that to really enhance their gaming experience. So to be able to see the 3-2-1 per game, or give us a ranking of 1 to 46 as to who is actually the best player on the ground. That'd be great. If you could do that, love ya. Next thing for Korea, just the club BNF. I don't think it's currently in the game. I think you can only see Brownlow Rising Star. I don't think you can see the BNF tally as to who was the best, who was the worst. Because at the end of the season, who gets delisted is actually based off, I think, like the total player rating. Whereas if someone who's like really low rated had a good season and they finish higher on the BNF and you're going to delist them, like it's a bit harsh. That's the auto delistings anyway. But I think that might be a better way of working out who leaves at the end of the season rather than just who's the lowest rated currently. Because if you've got a lot of young guys who are coming through and they actually have decent seasons for their lowish ratings, you want them to stick around, rebuild. Because what I've seen so far doing some simulated seasons is that the players who leave at the end of the year, they're always the same ones every time we get delisted, and it's always sort of the same few that get traded from each club. There is no real variation on a season-to-season basis depending on like stats as to who gets traded, who stays, who goes, etc. It all sort of seems to be the same, like 10 players that move clubs. So hopefully that can be rectified and fixed, and maybe having the club BNF in there is a better way of determining who stays versus who goes. The next thing for Korea mode is objectives, or some sort of seasonal objective. You could have short-term goals, long-term goals, whether it's, hey, you got to win 8 games this season. That's what we're setting you for the year. Or it could be something per match like, hey, we really don't want Jeremy Cameron to kick 5 goals this week. If you can keep him to 4 or less, well done to you. We'll give you an extra something. I don't know. Because as I said, at the moment, it does feel like it's 23 plus finals, just play now matches going on in your career without any external goal unless you're setting it yourself. So whether it's things that improve team morale or like team chemistry when you do specific objectives to help boost your players up, I think that would be a really good addition to the career mode to be able to help it and really progress your players forward. Because at the moment, as I said, it kind of just feels like you're playing it and nothing's really happening with your players. Whether you win or lose, it's just, hey, another week is gone. So a way of giving your team objectives to really enhance their stats, their strengths, or even whether it like helps with recruiting or something if you do a particular thing, or you help with your trades, like just give another element to it where it's like, okay, you've got to play the game. Winning is obviously the primary objective, but if you give us little things along the way that we need to try and aim towards, that'd be great too. The next thing for Korea is I want to be able to view all the leagues at once. And like, it's not a huge deal if you can't, but at least try and give me what the affiliated team is doing. If there's someone in the seconds who is playing well, let me know. Say, hey, this guy's had 28 touches, or give me a review of what happened in the second so I know who to bring in if someone is injured. Again, same sort of thing. The moment, it's a bit bland. We want to have, like, give the game needs to prompt you more. And I know you don't want to feel like you're being bombarded with information of like, at the end of every week, it's like, here's the objective, here's the guy coming through, here's what the board's thinking this week. Like, you don't want to have like 10 to 15 things come through every week. But even if something different happens at the end of every round that sort of prompts the player to think about what they're doing differently, would go a long way to making the career mode feel more complete than what it currently is. So being able to view the state leagues, even if you can't view like stats or whatever for save data or memory reasons, I believe it was probably some of the things we had problems with, is like, you just want to be able to do something along those lines. Just give me a prompt, give me something. I don't know, moving my hands a lot here. Especially now that we're starting to see those state leagues added into the game with the VFL and the Sandful added in. Yesterday, the Waffles imminent into the game as well, and then the women's side of things, that's going to be added a little bit later on as well. So like there are these things that are already going to be in the game. It's just whether they can really enhance the career mode experience. Minor thing for career mode, but it's still something you want to do, is at the moment I've been doing a lot of simulated careers with my friends. We've just sort of been streaming it privately just to see like what the game's going to come up with. And if we make it to the finals, that's great, but we obviously can't simulate, like when you want to watch the grand final, but you can only simulate it or play it. So being able to spectate your career mode games would be really cool. Without actually needing to control the player or team. I don't know how allowed that is, because like it might be like, hey, you have to be user controlled because it is career mode and you are the player playing. So whether that's allowed to be there, maybe, maybe not. But it'd be good to be able to spectate as well if you are just doing a simulated career. Maybe that's a setting you set at the start of the career mode where it's like, hey, I'm this team, but it's management only. I'm not playing. I can only spectate or simulate. That would be better. And on doing simulated careers, one thing that does currently bug me is you can't skip more than one game at a time. If you want to skip through the whole season, you literally have to go game by game. And I think it's almost like a 7-button push process to go simulate, auto pick team, back into play, back into simulate, and then you go through the menus there. It's a really annoying process from a usability point of view to simulate through a whole season. And it's like 200 button presses or something by the time you go through it. It'd be great if you could just go into the fixture, go from round 1 to round 24, hit the button that just says simulate the whole bloody thing, and you do the whole season like that. So that's something I'd really like to see be added in, is being able to simulate through the whole season in one go. That'd be great. If you could add that, that'd be great. Lovely. And finally, this is the last thing I've got here on my list for career mode. I know I've said quite a bit in this video, so hopefully it's not too long. But one thing I do want to see is, especially given we don't have a player-based career mode where you don't see your particular player in your career, and the fact that we have now coaches in the game, is you should be able to create your player in the academy, and that player should be able to be the coach of the team. So then when you're on the field in that coach cutscene where you got the whiteboard and everything behind you, it should be your player in that position, because that's what the management career essentially is you're controlling the whole team. You are the coach, you are the CEO, whatever it is, but like you should be able to do that if you want. You can also have the option, I guess, to be the default coach or your user created coach. I think that should be the choice between the two, because that way, it does feel a bit more personal, like you're more involved. If you're the coach of the team and you're working out the tactics of how things are playing out, and you are literally playing it out on the field as well, it'd be cool to be able to have your player in that position. And on that, I guess with cricket, and this is where I'm comparing it to, is when you play your player career, it's your player doing the press conferences and things like that. If that stuff got added into AFL and it's your user created coach doing a post-game press conference after like every 5 or 6 games or whatever it ends up being, that is such a better element to have the user involvement, where it is, hey, it's the coach, it's me answering the questions for the career mode. And that, again, just adds more depth to it to make it even better of an experience, because as I've said, this whole way through at the moment, there's just not enough in it to really justify like doing a lot of it. Like if you haven't started a career mode yet, you can see why people haven't started a career mode, because there's just not a lot of elements in it yet. So that's it. That's my list for now. It's probably a long video. If you have any big ideas that you want to put in the game or you want to see added into the game, I would definitely drop them below, because chances are someone's going to see this video, have a look at it, and, you know, if there's anything good, they might pick it out. And especially with the game being updated literally every day, obviously there's bigger priorities at the moment with actually just fixing the damn game and the, you know, the crashes and various little bugs and things like that. You know, there's half a chance you might get your idea in there if the right person sees it and that it's good. So that's it for today, AFL 23. I haven't got a plan for when I'm starting my career mode yet either. Hopefully over the next couple of weeks, but you never know. Could be longer than that, we'll see. But that's it for today, everyone. So I hope you did enjoy this video. It's a long one, and I will see you all later. Goodbye.